Good morning. I am Councilman Robert Stokes, Chairman of the Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee. I'm going to introduce the committee members. To my left is Councilwoman Felicia Porter of the 10th District. To her left is Councilman Cohen from the 1st District. Also, just for point of information, Councilman Glover is a part of this committee, but he has excused absent. Vice President Middleton, who a member of the committee, is on her way. And I'd like to recognize Ms. Marguerite Kern, who is the committee staff person for this committee, who does a wonderful job. This is a legislative oversight hearing for Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund. Today, representatives from the Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund will come before the committee to give an update on the status and activities associated with the fund. Actually, this is a charter member that's required every year from the charter member that was actually passed. Also, we have Sophia G. from Mayor Scott's office. Also, we have Councilman Torrance from the 7th District, member of the committee. Ms. Lee, I know you're the president of the Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund. As we start, could you introduce everybody that's here first, and then you can present your presentation, I believe you have. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do I need to pick up the microphone, or is my voice?
No, you can pick it up, and you can actually take your mask off while you're speaking if you like to.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilman Stokes. Good morning. Thank you so much for having us here. It's been a year since we've been here. The last time I was here, I was about 6 weeks into this new role, so I'm glad to be back, and we have a lot of information to share with you about our successes and progress in the last year. I'd like to start by introducing our staff, and then I'll turn it over to BCYF's board chair, Larry Simmons. So I'll have each of the staff members just say their name and share their role.
My name is Emily Corey. I am the Executive Assistant and Board Administrator.
Can you share the mic if it's possible? Yeah, you could use the mic when you're speaking.
Sure. My name is Emily Corey. I work as the Executive Assistant and Board Administrator.
I'm Benice Thayer. I'm the Vice President of Finance and Administration.
I'm Eric Pay. I'm the HR Administrator.
And I'm Brandon Hanson. I'm the Director of Strategic and Philanthropic Partnerships.
Thank you. And this is just a few members of our staff. And I'll turn it over to our board chair, Larry Simmons, Jr.
Good morning, esteemed members of the City Council, community leaders, and fellow citizens. My name is Larry Simmons, Jr., and I'm honored to serve as the board chair of the Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund, an organization dedicated to ensuring that every child in Baltimore has access to the resources and opportunities they need to thrive. And at this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague, my other board colleague.
Does this thing work? I think I can. Sometimes I'm technologically challenged. Good morning, all. Mr. Chairman, council members, my name is Marcus Pollock. I'm the Secretary of the Board of the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund.
Thank you. As you all know, BCYF Incorporated was established in 2020 to steward public funds to ensure that our children and youth are healthy, ready to succeed in school, and live in stable, safe, and supportive families and communities. Our vision for Baltimore is that children throughout the city can enjoy and access enrichment and learning opportunities that interest and excite them and help them sustain and build relationships. We envision a Baltimore where programs serving children and youth have the resources they need to equitably serve all of our young people. Our work is undergirded with the values of racial equity, collective decision-making, community ownership, and intergenerational leadership. Today, on behalf of the Board of Directors of BCYF, I share our belief that every child deserves access, and I share our commitment to working with all of you to make that vision a reality. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our president, Alicia Lee. Alicia is a visionary leader and Baltimore native who has dedicated her career to youth and equity. Our president brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and passion to this work, and now she will share more about our organization's work and vision for the future.
Before we start, I need to
I'm going to introduce them just
okay.
next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Stokes. And we've also brought with us, we have 41 new grantees in this fiscal year, and we've invited 2 of them to come and speak before you. So we'll start with Mr. Miles, if you'll just introduce your name, your position in your organization, and of course, the name of your organization.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Lee, to Chairman Stokes, members of this esteemed committee. Cameron Miles, I'm the Director of Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Amanda Talbot. I'm Executive Director of St. Luke's Youth Center in the Poppleton, Franklin Square communities of West Baltimore. We go by Slick.
Use the mic. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Darlene Clark, and I'm engagement.
Could you talk into the mic?
My name is Darlene Clark, and I'm engagement coordinator for SLIC, St. Luke's Youth Center. Families and stuff call me Grandma.
Thank you. Another member of the committee, Councilman Bullock from the 9th District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, President Lee, you want to start your presentation?
Thank you so much, Chairman Stokes. So we're going to begin right where we left off with you last year. Again, last year when we visited, I was about 6 weeks into the role, so I'm going to start right where we left off. In 2022, next slide, within 90 days of my role, we slated a set of goals. These are our FY22 goals to go from taking us from January to June. And those 5 goals were that we would disperse $9 million in direct grant funds, in addition to providing over 100 hours of technical assistance for free to the Baltimore community. In addition to that, I slated to also design an onboarding and orientation process that would help us to transition from a full consultant team to a permanent staff. Goal number 3 was, of course, to execute our ordinance mandated events like this annual review today, our annual plan, our presentation to the public of our plan of activities, and also budget for the FY23 year. We also conducted the People's Assembly, which is our required community assessment. And finally, of course, the submission of our annual report, which we shared with all of you in June. Our 4th goal was to work with our colleagues, Baltimore Promise and the Summer Funding Collaborative, to disperse funds to support 93 summer programs, serving over 9,000 young people in the summer of 2022. And our 5th goal was to assess the current capacity of the organization by reviewing all of the proposed structure, activities, policies, procedures, and reporting processes as had been established by the consultant team. And so from January to June, that was our focus as an organization, and we were able to complete all of those tasks. Going into FY23, so by July 1st of 2022, I had established 4 areas of strategic priority. Those areas are capacity and culture, investments, learning and growth, and planning for the future. And so today I'm going to talk through the work that has taken place since the time we've seen you last March, in category by this order, using this framework. Next slide, please. So first up, let's talk about capacity and culture at BCYF. So that includes building our team, supporting our board through transition, and also building the necessary sustainable infrastructure for the organization. Our goals have been to attract and hire motivated professionals for the BCYF team, and you can see here a picture of our current staff. We have also worked to define and curate the work culture and learning agenda so that we can operationalize the mission, vision, and values of BCYF. Next slide, thank you. This is perfect. What I have to report on the culture of the organization is that our staff at the present moment 100% agree or strongly agree to the ideals in terms of culture that we have established. And it was very important to me that as we transitioned from a consultant team who had, of course, laid the grounding and foundation of the organization to a staff team, that we had linkages to make sure that we are not only operationalizing the mission, vision, and values, but we're doing it in a way that is rooted in the ideals of Black liberation and of course, also the ideals of equity in the workplace. So ideals like BCYF values growth and learning in the workplace, the fact that 100% of our team feels as though they fully understand their role in the organization and have the tools and resources to be successful. In addition to pieces like BCYF expects honest, vulnerable, and transparent participation from employees. I'm thrilled to say that 100% strongly agree. In terms of hiring, the last time I saw you, we had 3 employees, including myself, so we had filled 7% of the necessary positions that will allow us to fully operationalize this work. And a year later, we have 40% of the positions filled. We have a team of 17. We also have current positions open currently. So we're hiring right now for communications manager. We're hiring a director of IT, learning and evaluation, and also some administrative support. So we're currently still continuing to transition some of our consultants out of their roles and bring on permanent staff. The board of directors, so our goals around the board of directors have been to develop and implement operations and communications resources and procedures to support our board. In addition, we've worked to develop and implement board leadership transition plans, as 3 of our board members did end their terms in December of 2022. And finally, we are working now to launch our new recruitment, which recruitment will be an annual venture for BCYF, to recruit, select, confirm, and onboard new adult and youth board members. So since I've last seen you, we had 3 board members who have completed their terms in December of 2022. And that was our board chair, Dion Cartwright, Kirsten Allen, and Jacqueline Caldwell, who all were a part of the transition board as well. And so now we also are pleased to report that 1/3 of our board are made up of youth, which is the requirement by our memo of understanding with the city and also our ordinance from City Council. These 3 young people, Lewis Williams III, Lene Drake, and John Gray, are also alumni of the Avis Ransom Institute, which is our youth program inside of our organization that builds leadership capacity for young people. So I'm also proud to say that we have, we see Larry Simmons is here today, but we have 3 new executive committee members. So these folks are in their 2nd year of their term, and we have Larry Carlton Simmons Jr. as our chair, Lisa Malik, who is 20 years in her career as the founder of Let's Thrive Baltimore, is the vice chair, and Secretary Marcus Polak is also here with us today. Moving on to the topic of sustainable infrastructure, which is the term that we've come to use to describe the infrastructure that's being built at BCYF. This is a term that we collaboratively created in collaboration with the consultant teams that have been there before, laying the foundation. So this idea of creating infrastructure that can sustain the organization over time. This year, we've worked to test any proposed structures and activities, policies, procedures, and reporting processes across the organization. From there, we've been able to assess and prioritize needs, and now we're in a stage of building and implementing new sustainable infrastructure. This list here to the side covers the foundation needed for BCYF, including documentation, systems, and support mechanisms. That's often required, of course, to receive grant funding and city funds in the first place, but as well helps us to demonstrate to the public and all of our stakeholders and prospective donors that BCYF is a good steward of the resources. So the areas of planning, governance, fund development, evaluation, finance and accounting, communications, administration, information technology, and data management are areas where we are building sustainable infrastructure. As of December 2022, we can report that 26% of the necessary infrastructure to operationalize the work at BCYF has been built and met and tested and implemented. And as of today, March 2023, we have 43% of the infrastructure that's needed in order to operationalize this work. We have a goal by June 30th of 2023 that 50% of the infrastructure will be built. So I'm so thrilled that we're a little ahead of schedule to get to 43% by March. An example of this kind of infrastructure is our year 1 grantee closeout. So in 2019, BCYF awarded 78 grants to the community. And in March of 2022, 44 of those grants remained open, meaning that those grantees were also ineligible to continue to receive grant funds from BCYF. We needed to work with them to close those grants so that they could also continue to receive resources. As of today, the team has worked really hard over the last year to close all of those grantees out so that they can move along and continue to be resourced by BCYF. And we have one grant remaining open. Next slide. Another example of the work we've done around infrastructure is the creation of a wonderful performance and learning management system, which really centers equity. For example, we have instituted an annual salary review meeting for every staff member. We know that Black and brown people and women often struggle to be able to have those conversations with employers about salary, and that creates an inequity in the workplace. And so we have set aside this time annually for staff to gather with their manager and have an explicit conversation about salary, and we think that that will really drive that improvement in that area. In addition, we've committed to completing a year of training around restorative justice so we can be a resource to the larger community, but also as a way to think about performance management. So thinking about ways that we can use Black and Indigenous wisdom in the workplace to help with conflict management and resolution, understanding and giving feedback. And also another strategy that we have also adopted is an annual disciplinary audit. And that allows for the board and staff, a small committee of board and staff, to take a look at the disciplinary procedures that have taken place from leadership over the course of the last year and make an analysis around bias. So that's the work that we've done around capacity and culture. And now I'm going to move over to learning and growth. So in February of 2022, we launched a 4-month virtual series in collaboration with our friends at Baltimore Brothers Incorporated. This series featured youth voice, experienced practitioners, and also local experts in webinar and small group formats. There were a series of 16 events over the course of 4 months. And these webinars included topics like engagement of women and girls on community-based violence, reducing the impact of community-based violence in the school community. All 8 of the webinars are still available on YouTube, and we believe that this series will create some impact in terms of providing valuable skills in diminishing youth violence in Baltimore. And I'm thrilled also to announce our BCREDS program, which is a free micro-credential technical assistance program that will launch this fall, focusing on nonprofit management, board governance, youth development, and racial equity. So a micro-credential in and of itself is a short competency-based recognition that allows a professional to demonstrate their mastery in an area. And in short, I just got tired of people telling nonprofit folks, hey, learn how to read a balance sheet, do it on your own, take this course, take that. And so we want to be able to offer folks small segments of learning that can really build their capacity over time. We think this will really revolutionize the space here in Baltimore because folks, board members, staff, and alike, and even community members can build these skills. BCREDs are personalized, they're flexible, performance-based. There'll be a mix of synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities, in-person and virtual, shorter 2-day experiences and longer 4 to 6 week offerings, and folks will be able to stack their learning over time. The name BCRED is an opportunity for folks to build their credibility in the community as great stewards of resources. And so that pilot program will launch this fall. Moving on to planning for the future. So we have, in accordance with our MOU, launched a strategic planning process that has started this March, actually. We did a survey to the community, a call for proposals to the larger community, and we have selected, with board and staff together, the Valbrun Consulting Firm, which is an all-Black firm that works mostly with school systems, so they really understand the priority of youth voice. Our BCYF Strategic Plan Survey is open now through April 8th, and we're happy to share that with all of you and hope that you can share that with your constituents. We've had a lot of success since our last time being here. You invited BCYF to continue to share our flyers and resources with your offices directly, and that really helped us to spread the word about our work. And in addition, we are launching a site working group, so a group of community, board, and staff this summer who will work to make recommendations for ideas for BCYF's permanent home. will be led by the guiding question of how can BCYF's headquarters also be a resource to the Baltimore youth development sector. So we already have lots of ideas around shared workspace, programmatic space, everything from childcare offerings and ways that this can also be a center for the youth development professional community. And finally, into the investment piece, which is really what the bread and butter of BCYF is all about, dispersing resources into the community. So I'm going to start by talking about our FY22 grant pool, and then we'll hear from some of our current grantees, and then we'll come back to me and I'll share about our current grant cycle for FY23, where we are planning to disperse $9 million this year into the community. So here's a chart that displays the trend over time. In FY21, $5.6 million was dispersed through the Aligned Grant Making Fund. Last year, we dispersed $9 million. We are planning to disperse $9 million again this year, and we will disperse $9.5 million in FY24. So our 2022 grantees, I just want to amplify a little bit about the ways that we assist grantees and monitor their work over time. So grantees, as you know, are required to have criminal background checks for all staff members or volunteers. They're also required to have insurance for their programs to protect the young people and also the families and workers there. And in addition to that, they provide monthly financial expense reports to us. They also provide quarterly programmatic reports, and we conduct monthly site visits. I'd like to just amplify our partnership with MOED, which has been transformational in helping us to really support grantees through the process. Janessa Picarilli, I just want to call her name, she's the local hiring law coordinator, and she's been really helpful in that she's offered weekly office hours to grantees, just to BCYF grantees, to help them to be able to meet their monthly requirement of submitting monthly employment and employer reports to MOED. So that's been really invaluable to have that partnership. In FY22, we dispersed $9 million across 3 grant funds: the Grassroots Fund, the Aligned Grant Making Fund, and the President's Fund. In addition, we provided over 100 hours of free pre-application technical assistance to the community. I'll start with the President's Fund, and the President's Fund aligns with BCYF's mission and is a discretionary fund for the President. And this year, we supported 4 initiatives: Arts Education Advocacy through Arts Every Day, the Rites of Passage Mentor Network of Mentor Maryland, DC, the Advocacy for City Families work of the Baltimore Family Alliance, and also collectively's and the Maryland nonprofit organizations Connect, which is a 10-month leadership cohort for Black-led grassroots organizations. The Aligned Grant Making Fund was an opportunity to support and leverage the power and impact of collaboration in Baltimore City. We work along with our wonderful partner, Baltimore's Promise, in addition to a range of about a dozen other local funders to support summer funding, specifically around the area of allowing organizations to apply to one funder instead of coming to us all and filling out 12 applications every year. BCYF in particular supports 36 of the 93 grantees. Collectively, we distributed $5.3 million just for summer, resulting in 9,798 youth served in summer of 2022 across 93 programs. I do want to highlight that 190 programs applied, and so of course the resources are not enough. I've been really thrilled to be able to work with the Summer Funding Collaborative. I've recently taken on the role of co-chair of their governance committee, and we are committed to attracting more dollars towards summer so that we can meet the needs of programs throughout the city. I want to share a little bit about what we call at BCYF the BCYF effect. So in 2022, we had 2 priority areas. One was older youth. And so what you can see is in 2021, prior to BCYF joining, and the difference to 2022 is that there was an 82% increase in the amount of funding awarded to programs serving older youth. In addition, our other priority area was organizations that are BIPOC-led. And so you can see here an increase in applications from BIPOC-led organizations. We see in 2021 that there were 88 applications from BIPOC-led organizations, and the number nearly doubles to 133 just by BCYF being a part of the Summer Funding Collaborative. It's an indicator to folks that there's a funder there who is interested in supporting, of course, Black-led organizations and also Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Asian-led groups. In addition to that, we see an increase in funded BIPOC-led programs. So in 2021, you see 42 programs, or 49% of the full portfolio were of the programs that were funded were BIPOC-led. And once BCYF has entered the scene, 71% of the organizations were BIPOC-led. And I think it's important to mention that 85% of the programs were fully funded and BIPOC-led versus the year before, 49%. And on to the Grassroots Fund, which is, I think, the most exciting part of our work, to work with small organizations who are at the nexus of community. The Center for Effective Philanthropy reminds us that grassroots organizations receive about 2% of philanthropic dollars nationally, and so it's wonderful for us to be able to devote such a large percentage of BCYF funds to grassroots organizations. The Grassroots Fund is a multi-year general operating grant of $150,000 across 3 years. We believe strongly in multi-year general operating support as it fosters grantee stability. It encourages stronger trust-based relationships between funders and grantees, and it also creates space for innovation and risk-taking. It allows these small nonprofits who often have the most salient solutions to problems to also have time to develop and spend less time applying for grants and more time working with the young people in front of them. So this is a strategy intended to build trust and strengthen relationships and overall increase impact. We use a community grant reviewer process for the Grassroots Fund, and we had 41 community members apply, 18 community members were selected, and we're emphasizing, this strategy in and of itself emphasizes transparency, stewardship, and public accountability. The applications are reviewed and scored by community members who were then selected through an open application process. And the 41 applications that we received were evaluated and scored using a rubric that prioritized familiarity with the local youth landscape. So these are folks who have experience working with young people in Baltimore City and experience designing or operating youth programming, and ultimately 18 applicants were selected to serve. So while all of these reviewers were adults, I just want to throw out our vision is that in the future, we are working towards being able to support youth grant reviewers because, again, this is the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund, and youth deserve to be able to make as many decisions as possible here. In year one, back in 2019, there were over 400 applications received. However, level one, which is the same level as the Grassroots Fund, there were 81 applications received. About 15% of the year one applicants were level one. So we were pretty thrilled that then in 2022, we had 79 applications for the Grassroots Fund. Here's a slide that outlines the applicant pool. So we had 79 applications received, a total request of $11.85 million. 84.8% of the organizations were BIPOC-led. You'll also see in that graph, in the upper right corner, that there's a great spread across the city of citywide programs being the highest level, that peak that you see, and then a pretty even spread across all of the regions of the city. In addition, we were also thrilled to see a spread of year-round events all the way down to one-time events, and very thrilled to see so many options specifically for older youth ages 18 to 24. The portfolio contained 35 grantees, and we distributed $5.25 million. So the main, over 50% of the funds that were distributed last year were distributed to Grassroots Fund organizations. We had submissions from all 10 regions. You can see that the portfolio, the graph where we see the regions of the city is almost identical to the pool, which is really exciting. Another piece is that 91.4% of the organizations in this portfolio are BIPOC-led organizations, which is an increase from year one of about 30 percentage points. All ages and grades are served, and also it's important to mention that the community reviewers really did show a strong preference for longer-term investments versus short engagements over time. And here's our list of grassroots fund organizations. These are 35 incredible organizations that are doing amazing work. We have 2 of them here with us today. We have, of course, St. Luke's and also Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood. And I want to share a little bit about the ways that we've been able to build some supports for grantees. So some changes that we made was, number 1, upon grant award, we issued an initial disbursement of 25% of the award up front to help folks cover some of those initial costs that are required from BCYF. In addition, we have customized financial technical assistance, so everyone receives a one-on-one financial technical assistance person to guide them through the next 3 years. We also, this year, have been able to hire program officers for that consistency through time. We have a custom-built grantee portal, so we have shopped every grants management system that exists on this planet, at least, and in order for us to do revolutionary work, we just can't use traditional tools. So we have worked with our incredible IT team to build a custom portal for grantees that has been really helpful in being able to support them through the monitoring process. We also have launched, on April 15th, we're launching a mini grant program, which is an entirely 100% reimbursable grant available to grassroots fund organizations only that are in the portfolio to cover the costs of their required insurance premiums and background checks. We also have monthly virtual convenings. We just had one this week where folks can come and get support and also meet with the president and program officers. And finally, we also have in-person convenings like the one you see here that we had at our house to celebrate our new portfolio. I'm getting ready to turn it over to Amanda Talbot and Ms. Darlene, but I just want to share this number here today, which is that with the Grassroots Fund, there is a proposed number of youth served of 7,144 youth, that'll be served through the 35 organizations. And just a reminder that nationwide BIPOC-led organizations receive only about 4% of all philanthropic dollars. So it's incredible to see that 91.4% of our Grassroots Fund grantees are organizations that are led by Black and brown people. Now I'm going to turn it over to Slick.
Before we start, I'd like to recognize the Vice President, City Council, member of the committee, Councilwoman Middleton from the 6th District. Just real quick, y'all, a presentation is 71 pages. We're not going to go to 71 pages, are we?
I think we've timed it out. It'll only be about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
We got you there.
All right.
Thank you once again for having us here today. We are honored that BCYF has invited us to speak about the impact of their support and the value of multi-year general operating funds for nonprofits such as ours. SLIC is a collaborative of West Baltimore families working together to provide youth with critical resources, life-enriching experiences, and a very strong safety net of support. SLIC's community-led model ensures that those with the greatest stake in the conditions and outcomes of the community are the ones determining priorities, developing programs, connecting to resources, and implementing change.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you use the mic, please?
I get a little sensitive when I'm talking about this. Sometimes it's hard to
Could you
formulate
talk into the mic?
Sometimes it's hard to formulate a plan, a positive plan, motivating efforts with a group of people. Somehow, at St. Luke's, we make it work. To think of West Baltimore 3rd grade teacher and a few parents.
It's all right, take your time.
Worked together, cited some issues, and seized an opportunity to do something about it. An opportunity to provide a safe, functioning haven for children in our community. A place where a latchkey kid doesn't have to be at home alone or out in the street. A place where someone can help with homework, provide a healthy snack, give a hug, give words of encouragement, share lots of love. Sometimes even if that love is like hard. It's a place where children can feel safe, where they can relax and they can be kids. Because our kids don't get a chance to enjoy the fact that they're children without a care, without a responsibility. I'll tell you, at first it was just a place that we created where our children can find peace, but over time it has become so much more to so many people. SLIC is a place that doesn't just enroll the child, but we enroll the family. Helping parents and caregivers to engage themselves in the activities, or through the resources that we aid to helping them find, to build themselves, to help us put together a strong family dynamic. When you have a strong family dynamic, you have a family that is able to engage with each other and their community, which builds a stronger community, which builds a place where people can get things done, where people can come and they can sit before you and they can say, we need this, this is going on, this is what's happening. You see the effort, you see the love, you see the hard work, and you give them your blessing. I don't know, I got a piece of paper and I'm trying to read this piece of paper, but somehow that just don't work for me, y'all.
It's all right.
What I do is I'm a grandmother to a bunch of kids that are mine, that aren't mine. I work with an incredible bunch of people who we all parent differently, we all love differently, but we all love and parent the same. We are tired of our children falling in the streets, falling through the cracks, dying at the hands of each other. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you all for your consideration. Sir, Mr. Moore, it's good to see you again. I enjoy what I do. The rest of us enjoy what we do, from making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to making scraped knees feel better. I don't want to take up too much time, but I got
all right.
so
Well,
much
you know
to
what?
say. I don't have enough time to say it because I want y'all to understand it.
Thank you for your commitment.
Everybody that wants to help, everybody should be recognized who wants to help, because everybody has got, and you know, we're not a cookie cutter thing. We are not a cookie cutter thing. We are not aesthetic. You don't just come and see our outside. Sometimes you hear things, sometimes you see things, but it's all in love, and it's not, it's a lesson to be learned. However, how many times do you tell a child not to? As many times as it takes. I mean, because we're still learning. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say.
It's all right. You thank you for your commitment. I'm sure the committee would recognize that also. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for
Darlene.
allowing me to be messy.
It's all right.
Darlene is one of 35 families enrolled, her family and 35 other families enrolled in an ever-growing wait list at SLIC. That's over 100 individuals. General operating funds like those from BCYF allow grassroots organizations, as she said, a third grade teacher and a bunch of parents, to grow a nonprofit. It allows us to adjust and expand our impact and adjust to the needs. By strengthening our families and caregivers with experiences and opportunities, we contribute to a stronger, more resilient city. Multi-year funds give us the confidence we need in order to continue the important work and with the sustainability that we deserve. As Darlene said earlier, sometimes it's hard to formulate a plan of positive, motivating efforts with a group of people. BCYF is empowering those of us who have those positive plans, those of us who are motivated and who are already doing the hard work of improving the conditions of our communities. We thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. President Lee, to your staff, to the board members, thank you for your commitment. I know when this first started, it had a little hiccups, but it seemed like y'all have taken care of that. To your grandmother, thank you for your commitment. But I just have a suggestion for this board and members. Maybe you might want to create a Grandmother's Day, so you bring more grandmothers into your youth fund, because that interaction with grandmothers, kids always take to that. So, I mean, you have grandkids, but the other kids are your kids too, you know, so, and they look up to you. So we appreciate your commitment and your honesty. Also, President Lee, do you have your 2022 annual report?
2022 annual report?
Can we get a copy of it if you haven't sent it?
Yes, it'll be due June 30.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Absolutely. Councilman Stokes, we do have one more speaker. I just want to make sure Cameron Miles from Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood gets his
I'm
due.
not going to have Mr. Miles mad at me.
There you go.
He is going to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Emily has brochures, Chairman, for each member. Good morning, Chairman Stokes and the distinguished members of the Baltimore City Council. My name is Cameron Miles, and I am the founder and executive director of Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood, a group mentoring program serving youth between the ages of 8 and 18 for the last 27 years. The program strives to mold young men into productive citizens. We encourage college, a trade, or the military as choices after high school. Our motto is investing in boys, building strong men. With the help of mentors from New Shiloh Baptist Church, Towson Unitarian Universalist Church, and a few others, we can tutor 30 to 35 young men on the first Saturday of each month. Youth are trained about the importance of a firm handshake and eye contact. On the third Saturday of each month, we bring in role models from all ethnicities and occupations to share so that our kings can start thinking early about what they want to do with their lives. Every Tuesday we do intake, where myself meet with families, agencies, and programs who want to sign their children or child up for the program. This year we will go to Piedmont Learning Center and do some hiking, yoga, cooking, working with bees, create art, and other things. In May, we will tour Morgan State University, and in June, we will visit Cheney and Lincoln Universities in Pennsylvania. The Kings will stay in a hotel, many of whom have never done this, eat at various restaurants, learning about etiquette, and visit the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. Future funding will help us to go to a Wizards basketball game over in DC and other cultural trips. The first Saturday in June, July, and August, we visit the YMCA for health training. BCY funding has allowed us to pay for staff in order to carry out our mission and activities. We will have a STEM camp from July 10th through August 11th. I want to personally thank Ms. Lee and Hannah Mackover, who personally have helped with technical assistance and answering all questions that we have had, sometimes repetitive, and reminding us about deadlines with a smile. BCY staff always has a smile and always receptive to the questions that we have had. Funding from BCY has allowed us to serve more youth, do more activities, take trips out of state, pay for personnel, teach more youth through tutoring, partner with a local school. We have influenced the life trajectory of thousands of youth for 27 years with very limited resources. We have exposed children to opportunities and experience that show them that it's possible to achieve greatness. We have cautioned young men to avoid relationships and activities that are dangerous and destructive. One mantra, Mr. Chairman and members, We want our young men to stay out of the criminal justice system and to not go into the cemetery prematurely. We have often and consistently introduced them to successful people whose values and ethics have guided them on their individual paths to great achievements. We have achieved this with limited resources and will do even more when greater resources are available to support this work. We have a 27-year track record and a proven history. Directing funds to our program is making an investment in something that is known to work. It's an investment, not a gamble. I volunteer at the Matthew A. Henson each Tuesday on my lunch break, working with fifth graders, and I appreciate Councilman Torrance and the support that he's given. Each time we meet with youth, we watch behavior, expressions, and attitudes to see if everybody is okay. Body language in this work is very, very important when working with youth. We also ask the question about suicide, and is anybody thinking about it, as well as allow the youth to speak with myself or any staff person about issues, concerns they may be having. One of our mottos for training the young men is to be honest, to be respectful, and to model positive behavior at all times to all people. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me and the members of the City Council to present today to you and the distinguished presence of everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. We ready to?
We just have one slide left.
Okay.
As you can see here, we're just slowly going through Mr. Miles' slides, and we know you have a copy as well. He just wanted you to be able to see about his beautiful work. And we're just going to close by talking about the current Grassroots Fund, which is open for application through April 7th. We've been providing a few weeks of technical assistance. Actually, next slide. And we know, thank you so much to all of you who've shared this information with your constituents. We're working with Expand Now. We've had in-person events at the Enoch Pratt, also the Center for Urban Families. Being able to provide free technical assistance in person and virtually has been really critical. The Grassroots Fund this year, we've made some changes just in response to community around the budget size. So this year we are accepting applications from organizations with budgets through $350,000, as we know that there's been some relief funds that have bloated a few organizations' budgets, and that won't be permanent. So we just want to be able to allow organizations, again, that are community accountable and working in Baltimore. They have to be, of course, in operation for at least a year in order to be eligible. And so, again, we are just grateful to be able to come and share the work of the last 365 days with you. BCYF is in great hands. We have an incredible team assembled. We have a wonderful and supportive board, and we look forward to just your questions today.
Thank you. Mr. Miles, I remember when you first started that program, you talked to me, so I'm glad it's up and running and successful, so thank you for that. I'm going to start off with questions from the committee. We're going to start off with Council Vice President Militant, please. 2 questions and follow up, and then we'll make our second round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you. I also remember and was around when this organization, the fund, was basically created by former Mayor Young and approved, and was proudly a part of all of that. And to see how this has come to fruition the way it has now is just so amazing. And we can't thank you enough for all of you. This is just so important as we move forward in the city, and I especially want to, we just had the hearing with the bill on the respirations, and with you also being a strong part of that is so important as well. One of my questions, did you get ARPA money? Were you approved any ARPA money?
BCYF was not, no.
Okay. Did you apply?
No, but
Okay.
that was before my time, and so we did not apply. No, we did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess, and again, I can't thank you all enough. I know some of you and the work that you've been doing forever, really, 27 years and more, is just so amazing, because that's that passion and love for our young people. In some of my travels, not just in my district, but around the city, some organizations, they're always coming to me, you know, we need a van. We need, you know, we want to take kids to a baseball game, just things, and they need some place to get, you know, a van. And these are organizations that have been working for a long time as well, but just don't have that extra bit. So I wanted to just give that little problem out there and see if that's some way you can kind of work that in. And are you connected or working with any housing for like runaway youths, and particularly connected to like our Office of African American Male Engagement? Those partnerships are important, and the Office of Family and Children's Success. Could you kind of comment on those things?
Sure, absolutely. And the transportation, I know for myself as a person who led a grassroots youth development organization for over a decade, transportation is one of the biggest things that'll eat up your budget. Young people want to go and we want to take them, but it costs money to get them there. At the present moment, purchasing a van is not an allowable expense with the funds from BCYF. So we do have a plan over the long term, which is also why we've hired Brandon Hanson, our Director of Strategic and Philanthropic Partnerships, to raise funds, to raise private funds that can then be used to purchase things that are not allowable at present, like transportation. Folks are very interested, especially a lot of our grantees, in even collaborating on utilizing vehicles. So I think there'll be a lot more discussion about that. Transportation is a beast of a cost. And then in terms of collaboration, we are always excited to partner with more folks. We provide a grant through the work of Mentor Maryland that's connected to the African American Male Achievement work of the mayor's office. And also we serve on former Deputy Leach's summer coordination piece. So that's the way that we collaborate with those agencies, but I'm sure that more things will develop over time.
Thank you. And I know that you also do work periodically at Langston Hughes Community Business and Resource Center. When they have things there, I know that Mr. Love participates and is a part of that. So please keep up the wonderful, caring work that you do. It is definitely noticed, and money well spent. Thank you.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go from north to south, but my mama taught me that ladies are first. So, Councilwoman Porter, you're
Thank you
next.
so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Similar to Vice Chair Middleton, just want to congratulate you all on all the work that you do. As a grants manager myself at the national level, I understand what it is like to set up organizations for organizational success and sustainability. So again, kudos to your entire team. The B Creds, that is something that we've been trying to implement in South Baltimore for some time now, not in the official capacity of what you all are doing, but just finding ways that we can transform community-based organizations so that they become sustainable, providing those grant-making efforts, speaking grantsmanship language to the funders so that they are more attractive to larger philanthropic organizations, because that is what we are seeing. Community-based organizations are literally being boxed out of these larger philanthropic funding announcements because they simply don't know the language in order to submit their application. So it's a larger problem from a grantsmanship perspective, but I appreciate that you all are providing the technical assistance for community-based organizations to actually compete on a parallel level with other philanthropic organizations, because we know that the grassroots organizations similar to you, ma'am, are actually doing the work, and they have just monumental success that larger organizations cannot even touch. So I appreciate all of what you all are doing. I wanted to follow up on sustainability. One of the questions that I just looked back at my notes regarding some of the community-based organizations about the diversification of funds. Can you speak to me about how you all are working with community-based organizations to diversify their funds so that they are transitioning and or kind of working to not solely rely on grants so that their funding sources are being diversified into other social enterprise opportunities? Thank you.
Absolutely. I would say our technical assistance that's tailored to grantees will be addressing that in year 2 and 3. The main area of request from grantees is around being able to share about their work in a way that is compelling. So we'll be working with folks on understanding and elevating the way that they talk about programmatic outcomes. As we know, grassroots organizations, again, are the most impactful work that happens nationwide, and of course here in Baltimore as well. So that's the work that we'll be doing over the next 2 years. I will also say that multi-year funding is, of course, very much appreciated from organizations. And so at the end of the 3-year term for grassroots fund grantees, they can also apply for an additional 2 years, and then they need to take a year off. So we need to prepare them for those years off outside of the fund, right? And so we'll be working with them on those pieces. I really strongly believe, because the work is already excellent, we talk at BCYF that all of the folks who apply for funding are worthy of the funding, right? We just don't have enough resources to dispense to everyone. So we really believe that just changing, again, there's a little code switching that has to take place, just changing the way that you talk about your program and the way that you track outcomes will be enough to leverage and attract attention. So part of our work is leveraging our relationships internally to also be supportive to these organizations in that work.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And even more to the point of when we look at like that reframing of how they are kind of developing and describing their program, it may be an opportunity to look at other social enterprising opportunities. So, you know, curriculum development. One of the things that I work with many of my grantees on the national level is developing a curriculum that sustains a funding source for them so that they are teaching some of the larger organizations and becoming subcontractors to some of those larger organizations so that they begin to provide that funding stream for their operational bottom line as well, because that's the gap that some of the larger organizations have not been able to crack yet, is how to talk to community, which is in itself not easy, but we make it look easy. You know, similar to you, man, we make it look easy, but what I will tell you, that is a multi-million-dollar industry that people have not been able to crack yet, and you are doing it so effortlessly. And so that is, you know, that is some of the diversification of funds where I am looking for. I'm looking for community development corporations, similar to Vice Chair Middleton when she was talking about housing, having those lines of concrete funding sources within their bottom line. And I'm wondering if that can be something that's implemented in the sustainability plans for each of those organizations.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Real quick, before I go to Councilman Bullock, I want to just mention that I work at a program called We Rise, and we go over to a lot of the jails and talk to the young men. And some of them now are with the director of We Rise, and we take them, he's developing like 5 houses, so they interested in construction. So I'm saying we need to have our young people, you know, shadow somebody if they're interested in. They was over at Morgan, with Morgan doing a development, now they up on Federal Street, and they interested in construction. So I think that youth piece that we have, we need to make sure, because everybody don't want to go to college, but we got to put that apprenticeship in front of them to balance out who don't want to go to college. So I think that's a great start. Councilman Bullock?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for everyone who's here. It's just really refreshing to see folks who are getting funding who I personally know who are doing this work, right? So in another life, look at the Baltimore Family Alliance. I used to be a director there, so I think about how so many of us are attached to families. I think about the grandmothers and mothers. As you know, I'm a father, and so I think about the role for young men. And so having been with mentoring male teens in the hood, and I look forward to getting back there with you and doing everything from talking and doing push-ups to those young men, but also even being with St. Luke's Youth Center. I mean, the fantastic things that are happening there and just wrapping your arms around young people, really makes a difference. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention another organization in Southwest Baltimore doing some great work, the ABC Park Seminoles. Again, there are some really good folks who, for years, I think about you, Mr. Miles, who have been really toiling in the vineyard and not having that kind of support and what this infusion of resources means, particularly for our young people. So it is fantastic. One piece that I do have, and you'd mentioned sustainable infrastructure as far as the organization. One piece that I also want to talk about, I want to be as sensitive as possible around this, is really around fiscal sponsorship. So we know that became an issue several years back. And so one of the things I'm thinking about in terms of that capacity building, are you nudging or having conversations or trainings around nonprofit status with some of the grantees? Because I know in terms of sustainability moving forward, that may become an issue and may allow for some flexibility in that regard. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Absolutely. We have a few media resources on our website currently around fiscal sponsorship, but also specifically around making that transition to the autonomy position of being your own 501c3 nonprofit organization. I do want to just vouch for not every organization needs to be a 501c3, but when you're ready for that, or if that's important to you, we do have some resources to share. We had a training just recently in our technical assistance package for 2023 around the requirements and what is that lift of being a 501c3. As you know, some of that process just needs to be demystified. It is complicated, but it's not as complicated sometimes as we think it is. And so we're hoping to, assist organizations that are ready for the next process in doing so. Absolutely, yeah.
No, that I would just say that's very encouraging. I know, like as you said, it's not necessary for everyone, but I know someone to make that leap. And I know there were some organizations years ago that were doing some of this work. So the fact that you have a critical mass of individuals and organizations doing this work and nudging them that way, very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, Mr. Miles, I mentioned Grandma's Day. Miss Nia Redmond over in East Baltimore. I'll make sure I give you the information because I think that's important, that connection with our young people and grandparents. So before I start, Councilman, I was looking at your presentation, and this program says Youth Fund. I'm glad I see some youth on the board. Okay. Councilman Cohen.
I think Councilman Torrance might have been first.
Councilman Cohen.
All right.
All
right. First off, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the good work that all of you are doing. Amen to 2 points. One, when we were passing the youth fund, having youth serve on the board was a big deal. So to the chair's point, really glad to see it happen. That was something that we felt if it's going to be a youth fund, then youth voice needs to guide the process. So glad that a third of the board are young people. Also want to big up Councilmember Bullock's point around fiscal sponsorship, because I think it's a big deal in our town. We have a serious gap around the work that Strong City, just to be frank, used to do. And we have a lot of organizations that I think have struggled to in that gap between being a full 501c3 and not quite ready for that level of participation. I am curious to kind of push that point a little bit that he was making, because I think it is like a big problem in the space right now in our town. I'm curious how you all, with Baltimore Community Foundation, with some of the other foundations that are involved and concerned in this work, are helping to reshape that. Because I worry that we will lose a lot of organizations that aren't quite at the capacity level yet to be able to do that, but need a back end needs some fiscal sponsorship. So is that conversation happening?
Thank you so much for giving me that opportunity to share about a little bit more about what's happening. I will say that the board is very eager as well for that investigation and for us to make some investment of time and resource into providing some suggestions and recommendations on how to move forward and support organizations that are in that gap. So much so that my 3-year goals include that by year 3 of my work, I will make a public recommendation and report to the public around that topic. So we have not launched any of that yet, but we are eager to do so. We've been in touch with a few organizations that are looking to create new opportunities for fiscal sponsorship, and I do think some competitive options may also elevate the work over time as well. And then we're also looking to see, like, what do organizations need? What does it really mean to be ready to go from fiscal sponsorship program to organization, and what's in between. So I will say I'm really heartened to hear a little bit more about social enterprise as one of those levers that can help organizations be more sustainable over time, but just really understanding folks' needs, but also what are some of the options that maybe haven't been presented with a lot of transparency. It seems, again, that demystification of the process, I think, is a big part of it, because we know that there are lots of nonprofits. So some of it is just understanding, like, what is the real lift that you're taking on by becoming a nonprofit, and what can you continue to do? And we also hope that then the resources of BCYF, having that time of having sustainable funding over a period of time, allows folks to breathe a bit so they can really assess their organization, see what's possible. So that is a part of BCYF's longer term goal, and we're excited to start that venture.
Yeah, I hope that you all will be a convener around that. I know that folks like T. Rowe Price, Maryland Philanthropy Network, like, there's energy in that space, because a lot of groups can't afford an accountant, frankly, and it's hard when you're not a numbers accountant person to manage a budget. And so I think if we can figure this out as a city, and if you all, BCYF, can kind of be the convener there, it would be great. My second question, I was glad to hear that you all are doing work around youth anti-violence, knowing that that is an enormous issue in our city. You said it really directly and well that, we don't want to see our kids getting killed anymore, and we are seeing, unfortunately, far too many children die to gun violence. I am curious if you could share a little bit more about that, as I think we're all kind of grappling with what more can we do around restorative justice, around just different practices that we know can help to de-escalate conflict and teach our young people healthier ways of being without needing violence as one of those tools. I'm curious what those conversations look like, and is there space for, like, a larger citywide effort around this?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely space to convene folks around that topic. And what I want to say is, I think the best thing BCYF did around the youth violence, the anti-youth violence series, was not center ourselves and our understanding. So we partnered with folks who were on the ground day after day, the work of Baltimore Brothers Incorporated, folks who have been doing this work for years and decades successfully, and centered their wisdom and gave them a platform to be able to share and also convene and drive the conversation. So that's really BCYF's position, is always to think about the cultural wealth and knowledge in the community and amplify that. We don't have many answers to any of the tough questions, but we're happy to convene. So I think that's one of the ways that we can be most impactful around that work. Many of our grantees have successful strategies, speaking of fiscal sponsorship, around fiscal sponsorship and navigating that process, but also around addressing youth violence and community violence head on. So that's our role. That's what we consider our role to be, as convener and container. And so we'll continue to do that piece. And I'll also say the webinar series was very well attended, and also there's so much learning that took place in each of those 2-hour sessions across 4 months. I think we can also think about ways that we can continue the conversation with community-based leaders.
Great. I know that there are school board members who are very interested in this conversation, council members. I just think this is a moment for Baltimore to unite around how we protect and support our kids, and I think you all are well positioned to, if not lead, then at least convene and help to, strengthen that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Torrance?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, I have comments, and then I have a question because.
Councilman Torrance, we can't hear you.
Oh, my bad.
Thank you.
So I have comments, then I have a question because there's something that's lingering that I'm starting to see a disconnect. That is not your fault, but someone else's fault. But I just want to make sure that after we leave this meeting, I'm going to send an email to that person and say it's their fault. I want to first congratulate you on just getting here. Multi-year funding is huge for small organizations. I get that some are not ready to be 501c3s, but my hardest thing that hits me hard with it is that in those organizations, the technical support that you guys are doing, that is meaningful, right? Because often people don't know how to do budgets, they don't know how to do staff. Some people don't even have a manual for HR. And that is one of the biggest things you can have with dealing with young people. So I congratulate you on building that foundation and getting close to where you need to be and bring those organizations along. My question is, most of the organizations that you are funding have in some way a relationship with city schools, right? And I'm wondering, have you had conversations about leveraging the funding that city schools receive for Whole Child, as well as the $700 million they receive from ARPA dollars from the federal government, in terms of supporting the work of these organizations? Because that's where the disconnect is that I'm seeing, because with this historic funding from city schools, as well as the funding that we have, a number of these programs could be in a school and provide that outer school time that is important to our young people.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And we'd love to follow up with you and continue that conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to mention physical sponsors, as Councilman Cohen mentioned that. Do the youth fund, when you allocate money to these nonprofits that really do the work in the city, do you make sure that those physical sponsors have they 990 straight? So, because what happened the last time was awful, because you had people who actually were doing the work, and then that happened with that that physical sponsor, and it just wiped out a lot of nonprofits, staff, and we lost a lot of young people just behind it. So do y'all check those physical sponsors that your grantees you're giving money to make sure that what happened the last time don't happen again?
Well, I can just say what we do in terms of monitoring organizations or programs that are being supported by fiscal sponsors is we do require annual submission to us of their 990s. They also are required to, of course, again, continue to present monthly expense reports and also quarterly programmatic reports in addition to site visits, even to the fiscal sponsor level. So we're very interested in making sure that organizations, we also have implemented some pieces where the fiscal sponsor and the program lead need to come collaboratively to work with us. So when we convene a meeting, instead of just sending your fiscal sponsor to talk about your finances with you absent, that's not a best practice. So really helping organizations to understand ways to also take accountability and hold the fiscal sponsors accountable is another piece of the puzzle, I think. But those are the ways that we continue to monitor that work over time as well.
And just a suggestion to the nonprofits, the Department of Housing and Community Development on the state have grant money. Have you ever applied? We have a new governor, and he said don't leave no one behind, and there's grant money that you should be tapping into for your nonprofits, because it helps. And I know a lot of organizations or a lot of programs or housing programs in the city go through DHC, Department of Housing and Community Development, with the new Secretary Day. I think you need to reach out to him, and maybe they have the grant money that he can provide probably to help you with some more funding sources, and even the youth fund also. So there's a lot of resources out there, and if we don't tell people where the resources are, we don't become successful. So any other questions? Council Vice President Middleton.
I guess just kind of leading to one, I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Your name.
My name is Darlene.
Darlene. So you, I appreciate what you said and tried to explain, because it was definitely coming from your heart. And a lot of times, that's the way to send the message, is through your heart. And you had said something about raising children or parenting is not a cookie cutter thing.
Yeah,
That quote right there goes a long way just for everyone. Each child is different. This organization shows that it takes a village.
Yes.
And all those connects. So my question is to add to that, as this council also supports the creation of a Department of Aging, are you doing things that are connecting older adults with children in a very strong, positive way, so that, because everything that you are doing for youth, we definitely need to have those older adults involved. There definitely has to be that, connect as we're doing things to help, guide our youth in the right direction. Anyone can respond to that.
We have tutors that come in, and they're a particular age, and they come in and they sit with our reading interventionist, because we have that. We have and we have an intern social worker that comes in, not so older, but she's in with us. We got people that come in and read to the kids. I mean, just because they want to do something, just because their grandchildren are up and they're gone, so they still want to stay connected. They still want to be involved. So that helps us a whole lot. We have people that have skills. We have our intern social worker, her father, he does landscaping and what have you, and he comes in because he helps the kids. We've got a garden in one of our classrooms. So he comes in and he's, started seedlings and helped them start seedlings so they can take them out into the yard. So, yeah, we want everybody just get to work, because what the old saying, each one reach one, each one teach one.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Get in. Move over.
I'm sorry. I just want to add to that really quickly. One of the things that when I was teaching in the community, getting to know the families and the situations, I was trying to address the needs of my kids and teaching them academically. But there were so many other things going on with my children in my classroom that they couldn't pay attention to math because they're worried about other things, more important things. And so when I started to defer to the parents and grandparents in my classroom and say, what do we need to do? I think that's where people in our communities don't recognize that their lived experience is an asset to share. That lived experience is what is going to help the kids deal with what they're going through, because our families have dealt with similar things. And I think that when people ask to volunteer at SLIC, they're like, what do you want us to do? And I said, well, what do you want to do? What is it that you love? Bring that, and the kids are going to love it too. We didn't even know we had chess players until we had a parent who wanted to come play chess, and now they all play chess.
We have a parent that is, his child did not start school until last year. That child is in the 4th grade. Now, mind you, he didn't start school until last year, which tells you that our educational system and we got some people out there that ain't quite right with it. So him putting him in school, us finding this out, and now we're trying to make it so that this child he's not going to catch up, but he's going to tail in somebody. And the father is dyslexic. So why do we have him in the program too?
He's getting tutoring now too because he's...
And why did we find out that this same gentleman can play piano? So we just snatched him in, and he just spreading himself all over the place. That's what we want. That's what we need. That's what we did.
I think that the work that they're doing and other organizations that have been funded by BCYF really speaks to that intergenerational thing that we need to have. like I grew up in the Baltimore of Afro Clean Block and Camp Concern, right? So I know another Baltimore, and I know those relationships that really needed to happen between older folks and young folks and what that really looks like. As a board and as an organization, BCYF as a board, we're really pushing into that space as well by having the 3 young people who are not token members of our board, but actual working members of our board. I can say I've learned a lot from Lewis and the other young people. I look at Lewis as, and I bring him up a lot because he's in a lot of spaces with us, and I really look at him as a colleague. Like I wouldn't even really call him another young person, right? We don't differentiate them. They're board members and they're colleagues, and they're a part of the work of BCYF. I think that once we as a city begin to value young people, right? Once we decide on how we're going to value young people and the importance of those relationships, then we'll really move forward as a city. But until, you know, we decide on how we want to make space and if we want to keep on holding up space as adults and making decisions for young people, then we're going to keep on being in the boat that we're in.
Real quick, sir, are you from East Baltimore?
Say it again.
You from East Baltimore?
No, I'm from West Baltimore.
Because I only knew Camp Concern from East Baltimore. That's
Oh,
why
no.
I
It came-
didn't know it was that
the
big.
The bus came across town, too. I'm from
Okay.
Emerson Village, as a
Wow,
matter of
okay.
fact.
There is a wider point, Vice Chair Middleton, I think, to be made here. And that is that as we talk about funding and gaps, one of the things that we can't overlook is the volunteer spirit that is very much alive in our community. And to the extent that we use those dollars strategically, not to professionalize the good work that the volunteers are doing so that they feel uncomfortable, but to use them in the way that's been described so that when the dollars do cease or decline, you can continue that program because you got people who are dedicated to the change that need to happen in those communities beyond the dollars. And that's the way it used to work in our communities. And I think the part about Camp Concern and Afro Clean Block and all the other various programs that almost seem goofy now were really the foundation of the communities that we now are looking at and saying, what has happened?
Thank you. I just, you know, my mother had 8 children, 2 sets of twins, but you know what? We were never hungry. So you see a lot of violence in this city is because people are hungry too. And we need to address that when we talk about programming. Because when they go home, they might eat at your nonprofit event, but when they go home, they might have no food. And my mother always had a garden. We went to 3 markets, and I kept asking, why are we gonna go to them markets when they got the same stuff at this market? And she said it was on sale. But one thing my mother told us that when I tell you to do something, do it, because when you open up the refrigerator, you got something to eat. So we need to address the poverty piece when we talk about nonprofits, and I think you need to talk to some of these markets. I work closely with the Franciscan Center, who do wonderful things in the city and feeding people and ask for no money. So to the youth fund, to your nonprofits, you should reach out to Franciscan Center because they are wonderful. You just need to see their operation. They have a culinary training for 12 weeks, and it's free. And I just went to their 4th graduation, and the young people are doing very well.
Mr. Chair, you made a good point bringing up the food issue, because there's a trend going around the country where and some states have already done this in cities where students that go to school, no matter what economic condition you're in, that it's free lunch, period. Your meals are free just in the entire school system. And they did a report yesterday, and it's about 6 states that are doing that now. And that's something that, you know, maybe Baltimore should try to consider too.
Baltimore City is one of the districts.
Okay.
All students in Baltimore City Public Schools receive free lunch. So there's no free or reduced kind of things anymore.
And breakfast.
Yep, they all get free lunch and breakfast. And then if they're also a part of after-school programming that's supported by city schools or Family League, they all also will receive supper as well. And I know that many of those, when I ran programming, if we had leftovers, we had families that would take the things that were left over after school as well. But many young people who are in any programs being supported by the Community School Initiative are definitely receiving supper and lunch and breakfast if they get to school on time for breakfast.
Evidently, it's probably not statewide, because these are states now that are doing this, so that is something that the state of Maryland needs to really push. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before we go to testimony, just Monday, I think I want to keep talking about this youth violence and this food because it's all connected in poverty. So I know my colleagues, they don't know, but I'm introducing a hearing to invite the hospitals here to talk about trauma and talk about violence and how we can partner with them. So hopefully y'all be here to testify again with it. Just get the hospital supporters because you have nonprofits, but you're still dealing with trauma and youth violence with your young people. So I will be asking all the hospital MedStar to come before the council and see how we can partner and work with them on it also.
Mr. Chairman, I would very much, if I can, I'd like to speak to a point that Councilman Cohen made about youth violence. There's a group of guys and gals, mostly academics and some practitioners in the space of youth violence prevention and intervention. One of the things that we just recently conducted was an analysis of the city's police data. Almost 500,000 lines of data that we took a look at. And one of the things that we found that was really insightful and interesting to us was that we were focusing on Bel Air Edison as an area of what we used to call in the business the unit of analysis. And what we found from the police department and the data was that the lion's share of the calls that they get for incidences of violence were intra-family. And I thought that was kind of interesting because the most folks think that the young people and others out there gangbanging and all those sorts of things, but to say that families are in conflict is to suggest a particular strategy. Why are they battling? Because many of them are forced into conflict because of the trauma of not having food on the table and not having work. And so when you solve those problems, then you can start talking about peace. So you're right, Chairman. All of these issues are interrelated, and to the extent that we understand the systemic nature of them, then we can start trying to do something about it at the scale that these problems are presented to us, because we can't talk about onesies and twosies. We gotta have an approach that takes care of all of these kids in the same way that I think the ladies here and Mr. Miles have described. We've got the capacity. We just need to bring it all together. Thank you.
Thank you. We just got to find a way to get into those households. We're going to move on. We have no one signed up to testify. Is there anyone who would like to testify? Ms. Marguerite, I guess. Anyone attending virtually who want to testify, please use the raise hand function. Do we have anybody? Okay, we don't have anyone for both of them. I'd like to thank you for your commitment, because volunteering is just as wonderful as somebody getting paid. You know, it's rewarding. And you know that you gave us your testimony yourself, and that was from your heart, and we appreciate that. So I want to thank not just the staff, but the volunteers and the nonprofits who really doing the work in this city and don't always get recognized. And the Youth Fund is really bringing it out. And we look forward to the next hearing, and this hearing is in recess. Thank you so much.